Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 10th of December, comes to you from London. And we've got more red on the screen this morning. Europe's open down, US was down on Friday, and Asia's down as well in terms of stocks. So we are seeing the turmoil continuing, uncertainty over Chinese US relations and trade dominating, and the job numbers in the US disappointed on Friday as well, indicating that the Fed was probably less likely to raise as quickly as was expected. So we're seeing the dollar in bearish mode. It's activated a downside target 1.37 below here. That is bearish short term. Of course, medium term we're bullish. Long term, interestingly, we are just hitting some resistance. So that may be what's happening. The euro looking stronger on that weaker dollar, so euro dollar is up this morning, and we've got some upside targets between 0.5% and 1.7% higher. So interesting that we're seeing a bit of a change there as well. So looking better than it has done. Against the yen, the dollar is lower, and this is normally the lead indicator for the dollar. Sterling is actually lower still, so sterling against the dollar is still weak. Against the euro, it's sinking this morning to new lows, and so that is pushing lower. And then the Swiss franc also, we're seeing sterling pushing lower this morning as well. Against the Aussie dollar, we're seeing sterling just a little bit stronger against that weaker dollar. Bitcoin down a further 1.5%, just struggling to turn short-term bullish, but it'd be a brave person buying Bitcoin with the overall outlook of these charts. As I said, the S&P 500 index was down 2% on Friday. That's putting us really at closing levels not seen for since the start of the year. The Nasdaq also pushing lower, and the Dow down over 2% as well. So US markets really still in meltdown mode, and the Russell 2000 taking out the October lows, so that's not good news at all. The futures this morning, the S&P futures down just under 0.25%. The Nasdaq E-mini down 0.25%. So it does suggest the US market will open slightly lower. The FTSE 100 is down just under 0.2% this morning, but sinking low all the same. The mid caps in the UK down 1/3%. The DAX down just over 0.5% this morning, and we're seeing here again making new lows on the charts. So pretty bearish. Look at the CAC 40, we're also lower, down just a 0.25%. Japan was down just under 2% on the 400 index, the Hang Seng just down over 1%, and China down just under 1%. But all these markets down, the Sensex down 1.5%. We'll look at the individual stocks in a minute. And the Aussie market strongly down over 2%. Brent crude is actually up this morning. There's a bit of a jump on Friday, and we're seeing here that we are just teetering along and maybe just putting in a turnaround here. Seeing a bounce on the weekly chart shows up more clearly there. WTI down 0.25%. US nat gas holding on to that $4.50 level, so still looking strong on all three time frames. Gold is up this morning, only slightly, but did jump quite sharply on Friday, and we are seeing the yellow metal now bullish, pretty much on the medium and short term. Long term chart still has a little bit more work to do, but we are seeing upside targets into the 1250s, 1257, 1302 is still a target that's there. And if we look at silver down 0.5% this morning, but down 1/3% this morning, but will follow gold most likely. US 10-year yield sinking to the mid 280s, so we are seeing that pullback, the yield curve inverting at the moment, so that's got quite a few people worrying. The Fed now not looking to raise rates probably means that we're just seeing that coming off. A lot of short-dated bonds being issued in the US, and we still do have these strong upside targets, but we're on the verge of negating that last one. And the German bonds jumped on Friday as a result, and we're seeing here that bond prices looking pretty bullish again. Looking at the individual stocks, this data coming all from Yahoo Finance, So we can have a quick look at the majors in the US. Apple were down 3.5%. That chart actually looking pretty worrying now, making new lows. Um, Amazon was down 4% on Friday, so looking lower there. Google down 3%. So we're really seeing some quite big moves across the board. Facebook down 1.6% at 137. So they're really falling away. And if we look at some of the others, so we've got Microsoft down 4%. So really big changes here on the market. Tesla down only 1.4%, actually still holding up stronger than most. We're seeing that in the relative chart. Taking a look at the Aussie market, just the best performers, Regis Resources was up 5%. There were a few resource stocks, mining stocks that were up, gold helping there, but on the downside, we've got some pretty big falls here. Automotive Holdings down 10%, Seven West Medical down 9.9%. Adelaide Brighton down 8.6%. Some terrible looking charts here. Remembering this data is all coming to you from Google Finance. Looking at the European, just looking at some of the other Asian markets, China, you can see just by ranking, it's only a handful of stocks up. Hang Seng, this is just quite a useful process. Only a handful of stocks up again, maybe 6 stocks, and the Nifty still open is again only a handful of stocks up. Some of the oil stocks, Indian Oil, Hindustan Petroleum, but these stocks are all looking still pretty worrying. And in Japan, a sea of red. Again, out of the 225, maybe only 10 stocks up. Taking a look at Europe, so we go straight to the FTSE 100. If we rank by percentage change, Informa Group up 1.7%, AstraZeneca actually one of the better looking charts, bullish on the trends here. Randgold Resources, that stronger gold price helping here as well. But on the downside, we've got Centrica down nearly 4%, SSE down 3.5%. Suggests that utilities are being pretty badly hit this morning. Barrett also looking worrying on the chart, lower with strong downside targets. Very hard to find anything that's looking great. Looking at the 250, Just Group is up, but have had a terrible performance of late, but might be just turning a corner on that medium-term chart. Lots of recoveries now. And then Spire Healthcare Group. If we go to the downside, Thomas Cook down 6%. So we're really seeing them being hit again. So still looking very worried there. Domino's Pizza down 5%. Have really had a pretty tough year of performance. And Premier Oil also lower. Even though we've got the oil price rising today. Looking at Europe, this is the Eurostock 600. Again, this list coming from Yahoo Finance. Morphosys up 2.8%. On the downside, though, we've got CYBG, BASF in Germany down some 4%. So we are still seeing some pretty big falls there. We're seeing these updates coming in now. It's looking pretty red everywhere. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.